Not only do we not have a single image of the 19 hijackers at the 3 airports on September 11, but we also don't have a single soundbite of their voices from the 4 cockpit voice recorders. With 4 hijackings that lasted between 18 and 41 minutes each, we should have some 2 hours of continuous recordings of what happened in the cockpits of the 4 airplanes. We should have heard the struggles of the terrorists storming in and overcoming the pilots, and then we should have heard their conversations in Arabic as they try to figure out where they are and how to get from there to their designated targets. But we never heard any of that. For American 11, the plane that hit the first tower, we were told that the cockpit voice recorder was never found. For United 175, the plane that hit the second tower, we were also told that the cockpit voice recorder was never found. For the flight that hit the Pentagon, we were told that the voice recorder was found, but it was damaged to the point that the contents were unusable. This is very curious, as black boxes are built specifically to withstand extremely high temperatures and the most violent of impacts.
Planes have 2 so-called black boxes, actually painted orange to make them more visible. They're kept at the back of the plane. 2 shells of stainless steel and a heat-protective material shield the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. They can withstand pressure down to 6,000 meters and heat of 1,100 degrees centigrade.
For United 93, the voice recorder was found, we were told, and was in good condition. But, for unknown reasons, the recording was never made public. In December 2001, members of the victims' families formally asked the FBI to release the voice recordings from the cockpit of Flight 93. But the FBI replied, "While we empathize with the grieving families, we do not believe that the horror captured on the cockpit voice recording will console them in any way." At the end of the day, the only sound bites from the alleged hijackers we ever heard are a couple of clips recorded by air traffic controllers on the ground as the terrorists apparently punched the wrong keys talking to their passengers.
When you move, please, going back to the airport, don't try to make any stupid moves.
Curiously, the hijacker from another flight made the exact same mistake.
Hi, the captain. I would like to remain seated. We're all aboard and going back to the airport and hand over demand, so please remain quiet.
But these recordings could have been transmitted by anyone and from anywhere. They don't prove that the terrorists were actually aboard the planes. In fact, the opposite suspicion arises in this case. Just as the Portland images seem to be the perfect substitute for the complete lack of images of the 19 terrorists at the 3 airports, these short sound bites, apparently generated by mistake, seem to be the perfect substitute for the complete lack of conversations from the 4 cockpit voice recorders. The situation becomes even more implausible if we look at the actual flight data recorders, the devices that store the technical information from the plane during the flight. For the 2 airplanes that hit the towers, again, we are told that the flight data recorders were never found. In the months following the destruction of the Twin Towers, every ounce of rubble that left Ground Zero was meticulously combed through in the effort to recover every possible human remain.
That's when we decided the very least that we can do. If we can't bring them home to their families alive, then we'll stick it out and bring them home to their families. There wasn't a piece of rubble that left that pit that wasn't gone over with a fine-tooth comb.
This practice went on until the end of the removal operations.
The big pile that you see in the background there is what remains of one of the towers. The tractor basically comes in, takes a shovel full of it, and then he feathers it out across the field out there. The guys take rakes and they rake through it. It's very tedious, but we find bones constantly.
As if that weren't enough, the same search was repeated at the Fresh Kills landfill in New Jersey.
Every single piece of debris, having already been combed through at Ground Zero, went through 3 more passes under the careful eyes of officers and agents of the FBI and the NYPD.
Yet we are asked to believe that not 1, but 4 bright orange, practically indestructible voice and data recorders eluded a search so meticulous that it was able to recover dozens of watches, banknotes, personal documents, and even buckets of coins. For the other 2 flights, the one that hit the Pentagon and the one that crashed in Pennsylvania, the flight data recorders were found, we were told, and were in good condition. It's from these 2 black boxes that the animations depicting the full flight of American 77 and United 93 were extracted. These 2 black boxes, however, pose a big problem. Every flight data recorder carries a metal plaque indicating the exact model and serial number of that device. This allows a flight data recorder to always be matched to the plane it was mounted on, while providing some important technical information. As explained by the NTSB, the serial number is used to identify when a recorder manufacturer switched from a certain memory configuration to another. This information is necessary to perform the correct recovery of the data. In virtually every accident report filed by the NTSB in the last 20 years, both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder's serial numbers are listed. But in the reports from Flight 77 and Flight 93, for some reason, they are not. An independent researcher has filed several Freedom of Information Act requests with the NTSB, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the FBI, requesting information on the missing serial numbers. But his requests were always denied. As no one has ever released the serial numbers of the two flight data recorders, it's impossible to know whether they came from Flight 77 and Flight 93, or from a totally different source. All in all, we have this paradoxical situation where the contents of 6 black boxes out of 8 were never released, while the other 2 cannot be verified as genuine both in origin and content. As far as we know, the 4 airplanes that crashed on September 11 could have been totally different machines from those that left the airports earlier that morning.